Hello and welcome to the C-Suite of CEO Chatting. Yes, I am your host, Shawanna Kennedy. I'm excited. To be here because this is part two, a special with Dr. Marlene Carson. Now, see, you got to go check out part one because Dr. Carson is a international speaker. She's a three-time author. She's also currently, and that's what we're about to get into, the juiciness of what she is doing currently. Also, we're going to be talking about that blend of what that looks like of being a CEO and then her advocacy work as being a part of what the U.S. Council. She serves as chair for the U.S. on the U.S. Council Advisory for Trafficking. So I'm excited. So let's not delay. Let's get Dr. Marlene Carson in. Hey, young lady, and welcome. This young lady, Dr. Carson. Dr. Carson, that's right. We're so excited that you were able to hang around for this two-part episode of C-Suite. I know in the first episode, we talked about how you got into it, what led you down this path. We know that you also are a coach and all of those things. You get to do all of that work. One moment. We are so excited that you're able to hang around for this two-part episode. So if you didn't check out part one, you got to get in it because she talks about how she even started, what that looks like, right? We even talked about I've already received my copy of even her new book called Pimp. Yeah, you're like, wait, what? What is that about? Yeah, you need to know. And because then she's even also talked about what it looks like to be catapulted into the extraordinary, from the ordinary to the extraordinary. This young lady, Dr. Marlene Carson, she is a beast. I'm gonna call her that. I get to call her. Look, I know her outside of the C-suite. I love the work that you get to do and talking about how you got started on this journey. So just briefly, in case someone haven't had the opportunity, but we're going to leave them a little teaser. Just tell them a little bit about who you are and how you even got started, Dr. Marlene Carson.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Marlene Carson. I am a thriver of domestic minor sex trafficking. What's that mean? What is a thriver? I survived trafficking as a child. I thrive in business and ministry, and I revive other people's dead dreams, visions, and purpose. So that kind of sums it up for me. That is what I do. I'm absolutely passionate about watching you thrive.
Woo! Y'all see that? And that's when you talk about a CEO and being able to tell people what you do quickly. You see how she just summed that up. So in this, I hope if you haven't already gotten your pen and paper or even some popcorn, because this young lady is juicy. Okay, it's juicy over here. Because you even made reference to what it is from the C-suite to the streets. Yeah. From the C-suite to the streets. Let's talk about that, because as we prepare to talk about some of the other, the heavier. So this is not for the faint at heart. It is a subject that is real. It is alive. There is injustices. So as we even get into that, talk a little bit about what was going on with you when you even realized what that looked like for you from the C-suite to the streets.
Well, you know what's interesting, Shawanna? I had a mentor who was a C-suite executive. And she came alongside as I was coming out of the life, still very broken, didn't have my life together at all. And her and her husband rented me an apartment, me and my children. And so when she did that, she said, I'm going to help you make money. Like, how are you going to help me make money? And she worked for this. Well, she's political. Okay. But she had a little side hustle going on. And her side hustle was this makeup company called Arbonne. Have you ever heard of Arbonne? It's like Mary Kay, okay? But it's an all-natural product. It's called Arbonne. She said, I want you to sell this product. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. You want me? Can I just be real on your show?
Come on.
Okay. You want me to go from making thousands of dollars a day selling sex to selling some lipstick? I don't think so, okay? She said, Marlene, if you just listen to me and let me train you, you're going to do very, because I knew how to sell. Okay. I knew how to sell so much, Shawanna, to be honest. I probably didn't have sex as much as people would think that's listening to this podcast, because I knew how to talk. I knew how to create an atmosphere. So I'm not doing all this extra, okay? And so that's a whole nother
I
show.
know, but y'all hear that, y'all. So this is
That's
not
a
for the
whole
faint
nother
of
show.
heart. I'm gonna tell you right now, if your children are with you and they're watching and listening, you might want to have them leave the room. But however, if you want them to learn and be educated on the signs
Yeah,
and things to do,
yeah,
grab them closer. If they're not even in the room, go and get them now. Matter of
mm,
fact, don't be afraid to share this out because
right,
you heard it. We're talking to someone that knows what that life was like, and
yeah,
she survived it, and
yeah,
she has helped thousands to
yeah,
do the same. That is a part of what she gets to do with what in being on the council,
yeah,
in government. It is so much so that God has graced her to where her voice is now heard on Washington, heard in
hmm,
Washington and in those walls and in the ears of people. But
yeah,
there's still a great work to be done.
hmm.
Now, before we even get, because it's still, this is what all of this is about. What was going on in your life? And I want to know what are some signs before we get into that other advocacy. What was going on and
Hmm.
how did you even get started?
So how did I get started in the life? Let me clarify your question. Or how did I get started in business?
In business and then led to the to from the life to the
Yeah, yeah,
business.
from the life to
Yes,
the business.
from the
As
life
I
to the
shared in our first episode, I had this gentleman walk me through a process. He taught me what transferable skills was all about. But then I met this lady I was about to tell you about, and so she actually taught me direct sales. She taught me network marketing. Well, I knew sales, and so we started selling lipstick, right? Well, in about 8 weeks, I had made $30,000. Of course, we sold more than lipstick. It was a whole product line. It was recruiting. It was training people. And I loved it. I'm like, I made money like this selling lipstick. And so I got promoted very fast in the company. And I realized I have a skill set. And my skill set is training, empowering, and helping people sustain their lives financially. And so that became a passion for me. She walked me through years of training. This woman actually is a broker. I'll tell you that she's a broker for presidents of the United States. Okay. So she had a lot of influence and she had a lot of information that she used to help me transform my life to what it is today. I'm very grateful to that woman. If she's watching this show, she knows who she is. And I really am grateful for her today. So I just want to give it back by helping someone else transform their life. I don't care if you're in the C-suite or the streets. I want to help you transform your life and to live a life that's the life of your dreams.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This is exciting. However, we know that when you think about trafficking, we know that
Yeah.
it's terrible injustice and it's happening as we speak.
Yeah.
Uh, I want you to talk about, though, what is that like when you think about the gap for
Mm-hmm.
us, people of color, and
Mm-hmm.
really what that looks like? What does that look like for you when you think about, yeah, I'm a businesswoman. I also am graced to be able to now allow my voice to be heard over here for something that was a part of my life. And you were able to even talk about navigating through that trauma of
Mm-hmm.
that and
Mm-hmm.
still being able to say, thank you, God, that I do have these skills, putting me
Mm-hmm.
in alignment, right? Being in alignment with the right people
Yeah.
at the right time to then now take what the devil meant for evil and
Mm-hmm.
then now you now turn that into good and then have helped so many others to come out of that life and also to actually have some things to show how it looks like
Oh,
at,
yeah.
on the other side.
So what's interesting, I've been providing housing for victims of human trafficking, primarily sex trafficking, since 2008. And so what I saw was many gaps. Most of the survivor-led organizations have not received funding. Most of the people of color have not received funding. So people of color that have become victimized, we're the number one most trafficked population of people in the country. And so for us not to receive funding for specialized culturally diverse programming for us means that we have to go to other people's programs
Mm.
and we have to conform to the way they do things. So I'm gonna give you an example, and it's just a real light example. I've had survivors call me and say, Miss Marlene, can you ask them, can we have some fried chicken?
Wow.
I'm sick of eating avocados every day. Well, we know ain't nothing wrong with avocados. They're healthy for you, they're good for you and all that. But normally in our culture, that's not what we do every day. Okay. And so they called me and said, can you ask them to buy us the right shampoo for our hair?
Mm.
Now, those are things that you and I might take for granted. But when you're in a program and you're not getting the things that you need that fit your culture, your ethnicity, then you feel like, I don't want to be here. So what do? You leave and you rather go back to the trafficker. You rather go back to the one that, yeah, he might not be giving you everything. He might be abusing you. But unfortunately, you know how to navigate through the abuse enough to get what you need on a daily basis.
Wow.
And so those are some of the gaps that we've seen. And because of those gaps, I've started something called Blast Movement, or Black Leaders Against Sex Trafficking. Black Leaders Against Sex Trafficking is all about people of color getting the population of people of color what they need that have been exploited, sexually abused, and or trafficked. The other piece of that is that when people of color have been trafficked and they don't have people that look like us, they're not telling you everything. They're not going to share their stories. They're not going to come forth with all the information even law enforcement would need to help prosecute. So what I'm saying to you all is they need us to get their lives back. And in that book that I just released called Pimped, I talk about a 14-year-old girl who was trafficked by three pastors that had thriving ministries. This 14-year-old girl was exploited in the church, so much so that they had to take the pews out of the church for DNA. So that tells me they were even having sex in the church. People, I'm telling you, there's something wrong with this picture. In that book, I also talk about 12 steps to transform the exploited soul for allies and volunteers. If you want to know how to help victims, get that book. And it's going to tell you, we don't want you to be in danger. We don't want to put you at risk. We don't want to put your children at risk, but we do need your help. And I'm going to say one more thing, Shawanna. Whenever I go to groups and they ask, well, what can they do? This is a question I'll ask. What if? What if you can do what you love to fight what you hate? And so what I'm saying is, let's say you do media. And so let's say you have a client that wants to be on wants you to help them do media, and they might not have the budget. You can potentially donate an hour to them. So that hour to them is huge when you don't have a budget to do it. Someone else might be a graphic designer. Matter of fact, we had a law firm. Our law firm used to charge us $425 per hour. Okay. So, we wasn't calling them every time we had an issue, period. $425 an hour. Right. But they came to hear me speak one day. And about 3 weeks later, they called me back. They had a meeting. They took their fee down to a tithe to $42 an hour. So they did what they love, which is law, to fight what they hate, which was the injustice of trafficking. That's all we're asking people. Do what you do. You don't have to come clean the toilets. You don't have to babysit anybody's kids. That might not be your thing. But if you love whatever it is that you love, use it to help somebody else. That's all we're asking.
Woo! If you are not following Dr. Marlene Carson, make sure you're following Dr. Marlene Carson. Also, make sure you've seen it go across the screen and we'll see it. And you'll make sure you have all of her information. Make sure that you even go in there and donate. Her website is where you can donate to the cause, because this is something you heard her say. It's been since 2008 that she has been on the journey of helping others, right? And then you talked about in your book, though, now, when you had the audacity to say, now I'm about to really tell it, I'm about to really write some things down and make it plain. What is actually some of your being when you think about it? Because if you check out episode 1, the first episode, the first part of this is she talked about being able to monetize everything as a CEO. Okay. So when you think about the book and think about this as the business, what is your thought? What is your hope behind the book?
I have two hopes behind that book. One is that you will become educated enough on trafficking where you keep your own children safe. That's number one. You know what I'm saying? I know people right now that they didn't go to church, but they sent their children to church and they didn't know what was happening at church to their children. And so I know victims of exploitation that was exploited in the church, male and female, that was exploited in the church, and parents, they don't even have a clue. As a matter of fact, some of them are just now telling it. And one particular person is like 68 years old. She never told it.
Okay. What are some signs? Give us, because you're saying, so that's helped someone as CEOs, because it doesn't matter. And all people, let's say we're talking about part of what she does as a CEO, as this is a part of her business. Yeah. So let's make sure we want you to make sure you understand that. But this is something that is happening all across the globe, but also not just even as it relates to trafficking, but signs of when people are doing things and you need to pay attention to your children. Let's talk about some of those signs to look out for, and then lean into how it can even go from that to this.
Yeah. So some of the signs, when you see your children literally changing right in front of your eyes, and you understand, like, they go from before I was exploited, I'm like I kind of am now. I was always talking. I didn't meet a stranger, always having fun. And then I went from that to, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm in my room. I don't want to talk. Don't ask me no questions. If you did ask me a question, how you doing? Fine. What you do today? Nothing. And some of that is just teenage growing pains. That's, what we go through as teenagers. But some of it you need to dig a little deeper. So I admonish every parent, and I actually teach this as well. I admonish every parent to do motivational interviewing with your child. What does that mean? Don't ask them closed-ended questions. Ask them open-ended questions all the time. If you really want to know something that your child is into, what's really going on at school, if they're being bullied, if they're being groomed, if you don't know what grooming is, find out the steps to grooming. Those are things where a perpetrator is starting to learn the victim. It's starting to really kind of cater to the victim. And so you want to know those processes to grooming. And then when you see the transition in your child's personality, do some motivational interviewing with your child.
I do like how you said it, because I've never heard it put like that. The motivational.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Motivational interviewing is asking open-ended questions. We train on motivational interviewing for parents.
So that just even leans back into the work and the advocacy, and how God has blessed you to be able to blend the world, the business world, and the work that you get to do on the nonprofit sector, and even taking it so far as to be on the council for people to listen. And so I want to thank you for fighting the good fight. It's an injustice, but for having people like you to still want to speak up and speak out about injustices that are currently happening. So I need you guys to lean in. Tell somebody. You have to say something. If something don't look, if you see something, say something. Say something. I know that this has been an amazing episode, these 2 episodes and times together, because Dr. Marlene Carson is involved in a lot of things, and I appreciate her time for even pausing to come. But I need to make sure that in case someone happen to be listening, or somebody knows somebody that could be listening at this, and nobody even knows what's going on, I need to even talk to that person for just a moment. Talk to them.
There's 2 things I want you to do, though. I want you to put up the BLAST website, blastmovement.org. Go to that website. You'll get a ton of information and some resources. But I'm going to tell you, when it comes to trafficking, specifically children, there's a couple things that you definitely want to look for. Again, I talked about their personality changing. You see the differences in the way your child is acting, as opposed to how they used to act. Well, the other piece is if you see your child with new things, new clothes, hair done, new cell phone, and then you're not buying it, where are they getting this stuff from? Some of these kids will, unfortunately will lie and say, I found it. It's my friends. They gave it to me. Don't take those for answers. Who's your friend that's giving you a $1,800 iPhone? No, you need to find out who these people are and how are they giving this to your children, and then make them give it back. You know what I'm saying? Because there's ties to everything. Lately we've been seeing all kind of news where people have been exploited and never said anything for years. I'm tired of these kids being exploited and we don't find out until they've already gone through the process and it's too late. We need to get into some prevention and stop it before it starts. So I say to you, get educated on trafficking. Go to www.blast movement.org and get some education. There's programs on there you can sign up for, and then also get the book Pimped.
Wow. I hope you are enjoying this episode with Dr. Marlene Carson. Such a wealth of information, such a wealth of knowledge. And this has been a rich, heartwarming, pull your hair back episode where I appreciate you being raw. I appreciate you being real and leaning into the things that are going on. I appreciate that you are one of those people. You are a gap filler. You're a person that stands up to advocate for things that are just not right. And sometimes things are right under our nose. And I know I want to even talk a little bit about, because you mentioned earlier about the trauma. You talked about the trauma and sometimes how trauma show up, not just even as it relates to the trafficking piece, but when trauma and how that can even affect you and stop you or put you on hold from some of your destiny as a CEO. So what are your thoughts when you think about the trauma, some things that we can talk to, how I appreciate the fact that you didn't allow your trauma to, you turned that trauma into, now you're able to do something with it. You make that a part of what you stand on. It's now part of those bricks that you stand on.
But it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah. Talk to us about that for a minute.
As a matter of fact, I remember I have a coach, a branding coach in Atlanta. And so I was on my way to see her and she called me and she said, I just found out what your problem was. Now, this was probably 10 years ago. She said, I found out what your problem was. I said, what's my problem? She said, you associate money with being sold. And because you associate money with being sold, this is why you give money away so much. And this is why you don't charge people your worth. And so I had to think about that and I had to process that. And she was absolutely right. I associate money with trafficking. And that's why I thought money was so evil. But after processing that and going through some counseling, I'm going to tell you all something. I know we as a culture, were not, at one point in my era, we didn't go to counseling. We went to church. Okay. We didn't go to counseling, but I admonish you, find you a counselor. I don't care if they're a Christian counselor, find you a counselor if you need it, especially if you're dealing with any type of trauma. Oh my God, I can go somewhere with that, but I'm gonna stop right there. And so,
part 3.
Oh Lord have mercy. But find yourself a counselor. And then the other piece of that is begin to invest in you, professional and personal development. I'm telling you, I was spared no expense and invested in me. And I haven't always been like that. But I realized if I'm going to do something different, I got to allow myself to evolve. And for a long time, I was afraid to evolve because I was around people. I mean, I've always been around people of influence. It's just that even in the life, I was around people of influence. So I learned a lot from them. I'm going to tell you this. We had one client who's huge. This man probably has 9, 10 car dealerships around the country. Huge. Okay. And he was Honda, Rolls Royce, and Buick. Okay, huge. Well, this guy used to make us learn exotic cars. He used to make us learn French and Spanish. Why? Because our clients would come from out of the country to buy these exotic cars, and we had to be able to communicate. And so, if a trafficker or someone that's a John is a buyer of sex, if someone like that can invest in you, come on, why not get free and invest in yourself and not allow what they did to you define you? Because even though, yeah, I'm a traffic survivor, but I ain't never been a prostitute. Okay.
Okay, talk about the difference real quick. What's the difference?
The difference is that's what happened to me. That's not who I am.
Mm.
That's the difference. I was never that. And because I know my mother didn't raise me like that, you know what I'm saying? And so because I know that, it took a while for me to get rid of the residue of exploitation. But baby, when it's gone, never to return, never to return. And so now I can live a life free, and I make my own decisions, and I do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? Not nobody trying to navigate my life and tell me what to do. I do what I want to do.
I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate your transparency in this conversation. We already know we're trying to be sensitive to the airwaves. It could go a lot deeper, and because you were even talking about, you mentioned even some of the terms. There's even things that we the average Jane or Joe are clueless of different things and names that things like that are called, and they're being talked about right under our noses, and we have no idea.
But in that book, there's terms. I have definitions in the back of the book.
I love that.
I have definitions in the back of the book. I mean, there's a lot of terms like a renegade, or a lot lizard. You ever heard of a lot lizard?
Never.
I'm glad to know that. Well, a lot lizard. I'm really glad to know that.
Look now, because see, I just, I knew it just was released, so I just got my copy. So I'm going to dive into that because I do want to know more. I want to know more because I have daughters. I have a son. Yeah. And I want to know these things so that I'm able to even help somebody along my way to be able to be open up about more of this in conversation, because you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes had somebody had a conversation, said something,
you wouldn't even know it. You wouldn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, but I'm saying even if someone is about to be approached, if the conversations are being had sooner than later, it may then have a child to then be like, no, that's not right. I've heard about that. So it could be a deterrent sometimes by not, by knowing, by hearing the stories, by being told the tales of those things. So that's right. It's thinking about those things. So Dr. Carson, I appreciate you so much for sharing a part of your life, a part of your story, and coming to the C-suite, representing, heavy, being an advocate, blending your world as a CEO, as a nonprofit leader, right? As a founder, as a woman, speaking even as a woman of God, to show how God can take your life and turn it into something beautiful, can take what was intended to tear you apart, to hold you back, but you pushed your way through all of that muck, that ickiness, and you turned it into something beautiful. Because even watching you now, I see how you're even evolving even more. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch. So I'm privileged, and I want you to know that I thank you for coming to the C-suite. This won't be the last time that you see Dr. Marlene Carson. Is there anything you want to say before I get you out of here? So, because I know you've got a ton of things to do.
There is two things I want to say. One, if you are a teacher, if you are a pastor, if you are an influencer, I would say get this book. Also, if you are a pastor, we have a program designed just for you. It's called Amen. Amen stands for advocates, mentors, entrepreneurs, and navigators. And we'll come in and do an assessment of your church. We will see where your strengths are, where your skill sets are, and help to. This is the thing, Shawanna. I don't believe a pastor should have the weight of taking care of everything in ministry. Okay. I just don't believe it. I believe a pastor should be able to study the word of God, pray for his people, and feed the flock. But if someone was to come to a lot of pastors, and I've asked them this question, if someone was to come to you and say, I believe my daughter's being trafficked, I asked them, what would you do? You know what they say? Well, we're going to call you. Well, what if I'm not available?
Yeah.
What if I'm out of the country? What if I just can't be reached? We need to train people in your ministry on the steps, the protocols. Who do I call? You don't always call the police in a situation like that. Do you know in Atlanta, I can probably tell you 50 women who did call the police and the police ended up having sex with them. And so and I'm not making that a blanket statement because I don't believe all law enforcement is bad. Let me just say that. But I do believe that you need to be taught and you need to know the protocols. So have a social justice auxiliary, just like you got an usher board, just like you got a choir. Have a social justice auxiliary that not only deals with trafficking, but deals with domestic violence, that deals with addiction, that deals with mental health, because we train on all of that. And we will create a social justice and we'll teach you how to monetize it. So you don't even have to pay for it.
Y'all hear it. Y'all heard it right here. She was not only seen, but she was heard. Dr. Marlene Carson, you already know that I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Don't go nowhere. I will be right back with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you.
Hey guys, y'all saw it, y'all heard it. Dr. Marlene Carson, she is a beast. She's a woman of wealth, knowledge, understanding, and you see that she is willing to give, give, give. I know that this could have been a sensitive subject for some, but I appreciate you for tuning in for even I'm thanking you in advance for sharing this with someone that may need to hear this message because it's going on. But it is great to know that we have someone on this side that is rooting for our rise and that is fighting for the cause for injustice as it relates to this subject. I'm Shawanna Kennedy. You already know the C-suite. You are welcome. We come in and we talk about the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly. And we talk about ugly of what it really means to be a CEO. And so I want to thank you for joining me for this episode. And make sure you follow me on all social media platforms. And be sure I'll see you again for our next episode of C-Suite, a CEO Chat. Bye for now.